We're ready. All right, go ahead.
Welcome to Word on Sports, where Roy and I will try to keep you up to date on all local area sports, some college garb, and some NFL standings. We will also update you on the current standings and all the important RPIs. And tonight, Roy is going to tell us all about the current RPIs and how playoffs are this year. And he's also going to enlighten us about how the districts are about to combine, merge, and change, and how that will affect our league. Since Roy has a lot to talk about, let's turn it over to Roy. Then we will chat about some upsets this week and some outstanding plays that are noteworthy.
Okay, so we'll start with the RPI. Actually, I'm going to start with league standings. So I was looking at the leagues, and with our league right now, Lake Roosevelt's in first. Actually, they're tied with Liberty Bell. They're both 2-0 in league. So both of them are sitting at 2-0. Then Brewster, Manson, Bridgeport, and Okanagan all set at 1-1. And then at the bottom is Tenasket and Orville with a 0-2. Now, obviously, when you think about it, I really think you're going to have Lake Roosevelt, Brewster, Liberty Bell, Okanagan up at the top when it's all said and done. And then just for future reference, so you guys understand when I start talking about District 7, because we're going to do a crossover with District 7. District 7 has Colfax, Davenport, Northwest Christian Colbert, St. George's, Lynn, Ritzville, Sprague, Washtenaw, Harrington, Liberty Spangle, Reardon, Asotin, Upper Columbia Academy, Kettle Falls, Chewelah, which is Jenkins, and Chester Academy of Notre Dame. So that's the group that we'll be going up against when we get to districts or crossover.
Almost a state situation at crossover when you look at the names of the teams and who's who in that group.
Exactly.
That is going to be a tough crossover.
It's going to be a tough crossover. And part of the reason I brought that up is because as you go in the RPI standings, and we're talking boys right now. So on the boys, when you get there, now Edna right now is number 1, which is over on the coast. But then you have Davenport at number 2. You got Columbia Burbank, who's District 5. You got Brewster at 5. Lake Roosevelt at 6, Napavine, White Pass, Colfax, Lynn, Ritzville, Sprague, Northwest Christian Colbert, just is Liberty Spangle, St. George's. As you come down, Liberty Bell's number 19. So when you look at the top RPIs, our 2 districts have a lot. And this crossover is going to be tough. The way it's going to work is we're going to have a league playoff. The top 5 boys teams and the top 6 girls teams then go to this crossover. What'll happen is the boys number 1 and 2 will go down and play in Wenatchee against the 4 and 5 coming over from District 7. Our 3, 4, and 5 will travel to Spokane and play against their 1, 2, 3. Our girls, our top 3 girls will go to Wenatchee, bottom 3 girls go to Spokane, and they just play over. And again, whoever wins goes on out of those. So there will be 5 spots going. But we've got some tough competition that we're going to have to compete against to get there. The other thing that you'd mentioned before, typically until last year, we had always done a district crossover, at least as far as I've been in Brewster. We've always played district crossover with District 5. So the Kittitas, Columbia Burbank, those guys. Last year, they said, oh, we're too big, we don't want to do it. Now, the unfortunate part is last year it really sucked because their teams sucked. They were eliminated immediately, and Okanagan was left home. And Okanagan had a really good team last year, but we only had 2 spots, and us and LR were the 2 that got them. So it's nice that we do have a district crossover, and we'll have more than 2 spots potentially going on. But in the future, I don't know if it's 24-25, I think it's 24-25 season, WIA is eliminating our district. So we are going to no longer be District 6. We're going to be District 5. So 5 and 6 are combining, going to be called District 5. District 7 is going to switch to District 6. So we're going to be combining with them, which I think will be a good thing in a lot of respects because they have a number of entries into state. And in the last number of years, I haven't seen the quality of programs other than Kittitas really coming out of there. Columbia Burbank, beat us over Christmas break. They've got a good program. But beyond them, I haven't really seen anything down there that's like, oh. So it'll be interesting to see. But that's kind of what I had to share.
Competition's always good for everybody. Win, lose, or draw, everybody. It's an advantage to everybody to have this kind of competition.
Yes.
And as we discuss often in our league, we'll have 1 or 2 strong teams. The rest are weak, which makes it hard when we go to playoffs and have to play top teams. We're not prepared for them.
Well, and that is so very true. I saw that with my older son Isaac's teams. I mean, they crushed everybody in league. I mean, crushed them. When you walked in the gym, you were just wondering, we're going to win by 60? We're going to win by 80? How much are we going to win by? It wasn't, we might lose. And then you got to the regionals or the state playoffs, and all of a sudden you're like, new level. We better figure this out quick. With this group, though, Michael really did a really good job of having a really tough non-league schedule, which is really nice because, like with Orville, we only play them once this year. So what I think they've kind of done is made it where the teams that aren't quite as competitive, you only have to play them once, and that gives you an opportunity to go schedule a game against St. George's like we did, or Napa Vine or whoever. And so it's been really nice to have that really tough beginning schedule. And, as you and I were talking, sometimes I get a little bit hung up about RPI. I guess one thing I do want to clarify, RPI doesn't mean you're going to state if you have an RPI. The only advantage to the RPI is after you've made it to the crossover, or even you got to go beyond crossover. You have to make the regional state round before RPI even matters. So, as you and I were talking, it's kind of like, I start talking about RPI and getting wrapped up around it, but it isn't really a defining factor. You still have to get there. So all of this, I mean, we could get our butts handed to us the rest of the season. As long as we won in the league and the district crossover, that's when it comes into play.
Well, the other thing, the first few years we were all kind of against the RPI, but what we're learning is it weeds out the weak teams right off the bat, which is actually a good thing. So you get down, and we don't have the first night. Sometimes in the past, we've had 2 teams that should have been playing for championships get one of them get knocked out in the first couple of games. So the RPI is starting to work the way they designed it.
Yeah, and I think it does. I think you're right. I think it helps. I think they keep refining it, and I think it's a nice tool to have them help, because I'd rather have an RPI ranking rather than, everybody's name's in a hat, let's draw a name. Just like you said, all of a sudden the 1 and 2 get drawn and they got to play each other, and that's not right. So
and you always question that draw, because it seems like year after year the same teams some way get drawn in the same matchups, even though we know it's not supposed to happen, but it happens. So let's move on. I want to talk about a few things that's gone on this week. Number 1, Kelson Gibbers is number 3 in scoring statewide, averaging 25.7 points per game. Number 4 in rebounding at 12.3, and 3rd in double-doubles. That's a pretty nice set of numbers. He had 37 what I call quiet points at Tenasket the other night. He was very quiet in the first half. In the second half, it just seemed like he just kept putting up points and ends with 37. And to note, his younger brother, Court, ended with 21 that night. So a nice scoring for those 2, but we've got to get more players involved in the scoring than just those 2. I want to also talk about a beautiful follow-up NBA-style slam dunk Tuesday night in Liberty Bells as the Mountain Lions were on a fast break. Remy Paz, the leader with the ball, could have easily taken it to the rack and laid it up, but instead launched it off the kitchen window, and the follow-up player, Kyler Mitchell, one-handed slammed it. The timing, the pass, everything was perfect. So we will call it the Immaculate Slam. Kudos to the Mountain Lions, who are playing good basketball, as you talked about earlier, and are going to be problems for a lot of the league teams. They gave us a hard time the first couple of quarters here in Brewster. Let's look at the current standings. Roy's gone through that. First off, the Lake Roosevelt Raiders took out Okanagan in the Bulldogs' own house on Tuesday. And also, the Kashmir Ladies lost on a long winning streak to Omak. The Lady Pioneers beat them 51-46. So nothing's ever in stone. On any given night, any team can come up, and as you and I are talking here today, teams you think you're going to beat, you may not match up well against, and we've seen that with Lake Roosevelt beating Liberty and some of those games, and Liberty's been getting knocked off quite a bit here lately. So is it matchups, or has something changed in the team dynamics?
And the interesting thing there with Liberty is they just, I watched Davenport play. Davenport is a quality team. Of course, they got 10 seniors. They actually were kind of knocked out like Okanagan was last year. That's why we didn't see them at state. But Davenport's got a good team. And Liberty beat them after losing to 3 other teams, and all of a sudden they beat Davenport, I'm like going, wow. But just like you said, you never know now when you go in who's going to walk away.
And some of those three teams that beat Liberty weren't what we would consider quality teams,
Correct.
but did they catch them on an off night, or is it,
Right.
is it a matchup situation?
Right.
So that'll
Well,
be interesting.
And just like you said too, I mean, like Liberty Bell played us tight. They didn't have Remy. Remy was not in when we played him here. And you could have that same situation. Maybe Liberty had someone out sick or not playing, or who knows, and now they're back. That happened to us actually the first year of the RPI. Liberty knocked Brewster out after our first game over in Spokane because their RPI was really low and ours was pretty high. So we got matched up against them with RPI. But at that time, they weren't really taking into account one of Liberty's star players had been out 3/4 of the season, come back at the end, and he was an absolute stud. So, you know, but just like you said, why? But,
yeah, exactly. You never know what that causes. Let's talk about Gonzaga. The boys are in action tonight at San Fran. The Zags are 12-3. The Lady Zags are 14-2. The Cougs, the men are 6-9, and at Arizona State, and the Lady Cougs are 10-4. Finally, we should take a moment of silence for DeMar Hamlin, the Bills player who had a heart issue after a hit on Monday Night Football. We should also take a second for the receiver that Hamlin tackled, T. Higgins. I can't imagine what is going through his mind after a routine tackle by the Bills safety on Higgins, but something caused him to go into cardiac arrest. So I think we need to keep him in mind. Today he was awake and he woke up and asked what the score was. So, you know, he is awake and he is squeezing some hands of people he recognizes. So hopefully he's going to be okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that. You know, and I should have covered the girls a little bit better. Our girls have done amazing. I mean, for what started in the beginning when they barely had enough for varsity, they're kind of back there again. But they have played some really good basketball. And I know when I talked with Christina Gevers, who was our head coach, she goes, man, Michael has scheduled a schedule for the boys, and man, it's going to be tough. And they've done extremely well coming through that. And really, after Tenasket was the only other team in our league I thought might give them some trouble, and they did in the beginning, and then the Bears went on a 23-6 run. The only team I think that's going to give us a real challenge will be Okanagan in our league. But then when you go and you start looking at those teams in District 7 for the crossover, because I'm kind of looking at that now, there's Colfax and they've got some other good ones. But, you know, St. George's and a lot of those teams they have already beaten. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the girls have a good chance of going to state this year too.
I was quite impressed Tuesday night in Tenasket because Tenasket came out and pressed the girls full court. And the girls at first struggled with it a little bit, but they figured it out and came out with a great third quarter. But I was pretty impressed with the way, for a young team, that they stayed calm under all the pressure that they had applied to them.
Yep.
So Tenasket literally threw everything but the kitchen sink at the girls in the first two quarters.
Yep.
And then the girls woke up and went on that 23-6 run, as you said, in the third quarter, and pretty much put it out of reach for Tenasket from then on.
They did exceptionally well. So it's neat to see. It's neat to see the competition that the girls are playing at the level they're playing and how the boys are doing. So it's going to be a good season. So there we go.
Roy, I think this is a great thing. We do it every Thursday, and you know, more and more people are starting to watch the video and watching what we're doing. And you know, you explained how to get on, and everybody's starting to figure that out. So as we work the bugs out of this, no other school has what we're offering right now with live action play-by-play, and the video is as clear as a bell. It's like sitting in the gym. So it's a good thing.
Good. Well, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun supporting the student athletes and seeing them do well. So thank you, Karl.
You bet. Thanks, Roy.
No problem.